Hi there, welcome. I'd just like to say sorry to anybody who subscribed to my channel, these kind people, because I haven't posted anything for a little while. I do apologise. I have been doing bits and pieces, but I haven't really had time to do any videos. Unfortunately, this isn't my full-time job. I have another job, so it's quite hard sometimes to find the time. But I'm trying to get back into doing some more regular videos. So I'm going to start with this one. I thought what I'd do, I've got quite a lot of ideas for things coming up. And I've got a lot of ideas which are kind of Christmas related. So I want to start doing those before it's too late. And I've got a digital I've been working on that's Christmas themed. So I'm going to do some videos, hopefully very, very soon, about those. So I thought before I get into that, I thought I would do, seeing as it is pretty much now October, I thought I would do a little Halloween make. So I'm gonna go for a little. I don't very often do a lot of Halloween stuff because Christmas always seems to catch up with me very quickly. But I'm gonna just have a bit of fun and do a little kind of Halloween thing. So this is, I'm gonna kind of do it as a tag shape size, but you could equally do this as a journal cover piece or something you can hang up as a decoration or anything like that. So I'm going to start by going through what I'm going to use, and I'm going to use a piece of cardboard just from a box, and I have stripped off the front one side of the cardboard so that you can see the corrugated card inside. The piece I've cut is just over about 3 and 1/8, just under 8 centimeters, and just under 15 centimeters, just under 6 inches. So just a kind of quite a large tag sort of size. I've also got a strip of card that has come from one of the cardboard Amazon envelopes, I think it is, just one of the pieces from the side of one of those. Just got the kind of torn edge. I've just torn it so that it kind of is the same length as my main piece. I've also got a bit of plain white card, just a normal sort of card weight. I think it's 220 GSM. It doesn't really matter. This is just so I can ink up and use for my lettering later. So that's my main kind of base pieces. So I'm going to start by putting some colour onto this. So I'm using, for the whole project, I'm using a few different paints, and I'm using a few different inks. So I'm using, let's have a look, I've got a black soot distress ink, I've got the fired brick, and I've got ripe persimmon as well. So I'm going to be using a bit of all those. I've also got some white gesso that I'm going to be using as well. I've got some brushes to use for my inks. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to use a different, just for this I'm going to use a different brush for each colour, because I've only got the 3 colours. So I'm just going to save cleaning my brush in between. So I'm going to use a bit of the black, And I'm just going to start kind of gently sort of rubbing it over the top. I just want to make it look a bit more grungy, basically. So I'm just going to just go over it in places, nothing precise. A bit down the edges. And I'm going to do the same thing a bit with all the different colours. So I'm going to do the same sort of thing with the fired brick colour. Just gonna kind of go over the top. I'm just doing it gently so that it just kind of goes onto the top, you know, the tops part of the corrugated card. A bit of that on there, a bit on the edges in some places. Okay, and then I'm going to go with a bit of the right persimmon colour, just for a bit of a brighter kind of Halloweeny orange. Just put that on. I want it to look kind of, you know, like an old, you know, piece of wood or old kind of door, or, you know, something like that effect. So that'll do. I'll need the inks again in a bit, so I'm just gonna come back to those. Right, what I'm going to do next is I could use some white gesso. I'm actually gonna, for speed, use a white acrylic paint marker, and I'm just gonna kind of splodge some white around. Could use a dry brush with some gesso for this. Don't really need too much white. I don't want to make it too bright. It's just a little kind of little tiny bits. You can kind of blend it in with your finger. So I think that will do, actually. Okay, so that's kind of all I'm going to do on that piece. I might, when I finished it all, I might put some more stuff on at the end, but that's all I need for now. And then I'm going to move on to this, and what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to take my black soot and I'm going to go round the edge of this with, I want a fair amount of ink going around the edge. I'm just going to ink all the way around the edge of this. Doesn't have to be neat at all, because I'm going to blend it with some gesso in a minute. So just spreading it on the edges. This is where I'm probably going to start getting a bit messy. Okay, that'll do to start. We can always add some more ink later. And then what I'm going to do is just going to take a little bit of gesso and I'm going to squeeze it on my finger. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on, but I'm going to kind of spread it on and sort of blend it in with the ink that I've got at the sides. So I want to kind of leave it more white in the middle and then blend it with the black towards the sides. Just going to get a little bit more. I think that'll be enough. So just put that down there. Again, just rubbing the sides just to blend that ink in. If you've got a bit too much, just take it off with another finger. You can obviously do this with a brush, but I find it's quicker to clean my finger than a brush. So I'm just going to put a bit here, at which point I'm going to get my brush dirty. Can do a bit more once it's dry. That will, just going to actually use this white bit I've still got on my finger just to go down the middle of here. Because I'm going to put my lettering onto this later. I'm going to do some die cut lettering, so I want a nice bright bit down the center so that my lettering will show up. Okay, so that's my second piece. I'm going to let that dry. Just going to get a wipe so that I can clean my fingers. Okay, so the next bit to do, which I'm not going to need till a bit later, but I might as well do it now while I've got my ink out. I'm just going to move these two out the way and make sure they're dried off. I'm going to just get a piece of paper now. What I'm going to do is going to take this piece of card and I'm going to just roughly put the same three colours on here and blend them all together just to create a base that I can cut my letters out of, that I can die cut my letters from. So it's just enough colour on here to be able to die cut the letters that I need. So I'm going to go for my main colour. I'm going to go for the Right Persimmon, and I'm just going to put a fair amount. And this doesn't have to be neat blending or anything, it just needs to kind of go on here. So I'm just going to start just putting the colour down. Okay, and then this doesn't have to be neat and perfectly blended. In fact, I kind of want it to look quite grungy and uneven. This is kind of supposed to look like a, you know, something that's old and you know, with old paint and things like that. So it doesn't need to be neat at all. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to die cut the letters that I'm going to use, and I'm going to put spooky on here. So I've got these little letters which are quite nice. I think these were just from Amazon. So I'm going to place all of these onto here. Obviously I'll have to do two of those, and I will end up with my spooky. So I'm going to go away and cut those out of there, and then I will show you what I get. Okay, so I have my letters here. I'm going to bring them over. So here they are. Okay, so there's kind of a bit of variation in the colouring and a bit of shading. There's some darker bits and some brighter bits. So these are going to go onto our strip that I've made here. So I'm going to basically stick them onto here, a bit kind of higgledy-piggledy, nothing straight, just kind of, you know, something like that. So those are going to be glued onto there, and then that will go onto here a bit like that later. That's my plan. So when that's all finished drying, I will glue those letters on. The next part is going to be a little spider web. So I'm going to use some just acrylic yarn. This is that double knitting yarn, I think, but you can use whatever colour, whatever. You could use some string or some thread or any other kind of yarn, or embroidery floss or something of that sort, in whatever colour you like. Obviously I've just gone for a cream for my spider web, and I've got a yarn needle because I'm going to actually sew it through in a kind of a web shape. So I'm going to get on and do that, and I probably won't be talking while I'm doing it because I need to concentrate on what I'm doing. But again, this doesn't need to be neat at all and tidy. It kind of, you know, it's all got to look a bit grungy. This isn't supposed to be something that will take, you know, forever to make. So I've put a little knot in the end. But the only thing I will say, when you're pulling through your thread on this, don't pull too hard. Otherwise, all you'll do is just pull through your cardboard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a kind of web in this corner. I mean, you could do whatever, wherever. So I'm just going to punch a hole straight through with my needle. As I say, I'm not going to pull very tight because I don't want to pull a hole in my card. So I'm just going to go back down over here. You could, if you don't want to sew, you could use any kind of glue or a glue gun and just kind of stick it down in all the places that you want. I'm going to just be using my needle, and you don't need to really measure anything, just do it by eye. It's all a bit freestyle. And I'm gonna put some of them into the same holes, but I don't want to put too many into the same holes again, because I don't want to create a big hole. It's going to be a weakness. So basically just gonna guess. I mean, I'm not really paying too much attention to what's going on at the back. You could probably be neater and use less. I'm going to cover this with something at the end, so I'm just gonna go back into that one, I think, for this one. So you see, this is my kind of the longer parts of the spider web. I'm gonna make another hole up and then come down again. So I'm gonna kind of just guess about here, I think. There we go. And then my last one, I'm gonna put over on this side. So, and then I'm gonna go back up into somewhere near my first hole that I did. Okay, so that's my kind of outward parts of the spider web. So what I'm going to do next, obviously if you run out of yarn, you can just join it wherever, knot them together, you know, again, not neat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of create the other parts of the spider web that go round. So all I'm going to do is just come up next to here, and then for this one I'm just gonna, again, I'm not using a well-known stitch for this. I'm just kind of making it up as I go along. It's just got to look vaguely like a web shape. So I'm going over the top of that, and then what I'm going to do is come back up on this side of it, and then I'm going to move on to the next one, and I'm going to go over the top, and then I'm going to come back up, hopefully, if I can find the right place. Don't worry if you make other holes. I mean, that's the good thing about doing grungy things, is that it doesn't matter if you mess something up. Okay, so that's fine. So we'll come up there, and then I'm going to go down into this side. So you can see the idea. I've got my first row, and then I'm just going to carry on and do more rows till I get however close together, however many rows, until I kind of get to the end here. probably just glue them down later on. So there we have our little spider web, and we're going to need something to go and live in our spider web. So I have got a little plastic spider. Obviously this is going to be quite chunky, this whole tag. So if you prefer everything flatter, then you could use printables for everything. You could draw or print off a little spider picture. I'm sure they're not that hard to find. And then stick that on, and everything else I'm going to use as well. You could probably find a printable version of whatever it is you want to use. So what I'm going to do, I wasn't going to make this too sparkly, but I'm actually thinking that what I'm going to do is make my spider a little bit sparkly. So you could put some glue on your spider, and if you've got some glitter, put a bit of glitter on. I'm going to actually use a nail polish that I have, which is kind of, it's sort of purpley glittery, which I don't really use it very often. So I'm going to just paint my spider with the glittery nail polish. I'm just going to kind of chuck it on. Try and, I think with these glitter polishes you sometimes get a bit without glitter. Just try and kind of scrape the glitter off the brush a bit, but I think that's going to be quite nice. So we'll let that dry. You could probably dry it with a heat tool, but I've got some other things to do before I glue my spider on, so I'm going to let it dry while I do the rest. So there we go, nice and sparkly. Okay, I'm going to put him over there to dry. Might use some more of this to decorate later, but we'll see. So we've now got our base, we've got our web, we've got our spider with its glitter on to put on later. The next thing I'm going to add is just a bit more grunginess. I've got this. You could paint some more here. You could stick a bit of. The other thing I was going to use for this was maybe a bit of torn paper. You could tear and ink. Just wanted something that looks like it's peeling off, just to go on this bottom part here. But what I've decided to use is a bit of this, which is scraped off of, sometimes I do printing, not on a gel plate, but sometimes instead of gel plate I use my glass mat to do some printing. So after a while with that, and sometimes the paper sticks a bit, after a while you can scrape it off the glass when it's dry, and sometimes you get quite a nice piece of scraping, which I think is quite cool. So then I use that just to stick on collages and as a bit of grunginess on anything really. So I'm going to stick this onto here. I'm going to kind of stick it into the grooves a little bit if I can. So I'm going to get on with that next. That's just going to go down in this corner, because we're going to have our our lettering going along this side and our spider up here somewhere in his web. So I'm just going to kind of glue this on, and then we'll move on to the next part. Okay, so we've got our little kind of painty embellishment there. It's quite nice down here. So I'm going to add something else here. We're going to have our lettering down here and our spider up the top, and then I'll see if there's anything else we can add on. But that just adds a little bit of something down in that corner where we haven't got the web. So that needs to dry. Just going to put that up there for a minute. So the next thing that I have is I'm going to put a little picture. I've got a little frame here which is made out of polymer clay, you know, the Thymo polymer clay, and this is something that I've made using a silicone mold, and it's a little frame. That's the one it is. I think it would have come from Amazon. Not that long ago, actually. I haven't really had a chance to use it that much, but it's a lovely little frame with quite a lot of nice detail. So I made that in, it's the same as, this is another one that I made at the same time. Only this one I've left the backing piece in. On this one I cut out the middle part, but it's the same frame, and all I've done, I've painted it with some kind of I think it was an acrylic paint. I can't remember exactly which colour. I think it was a Payne's grey mixed with a bit of green, just to get a kind of dark sort of tealy colour. And then I've used like a bronzy coloured acrylic, and then I've kind of used I think I used a kitchen towel, just kind of lightly kind of spread it, sort of rubbed it almost over the top to get the effect of the kind of metallic effect over the top. Okay, so I'm going to use that. I've got a little picture here which I did a few options, but this is my favourite one. I've put a little, I did this on Illustrator just so that I could get it the right size to go in my frame. This is just a public domain image that I got on the internet, and then I've put a little frame around it, and that is just going to go into the frame. So I'm going to glue that onto the frame. Then this is going to go over here somewhere on our tag. So that's my next task, is to glue that on. So I'm actually gonna, I think this glue should stick this. I think we'll be all right. It doesn't need to stick it too madly well, because I'm going to stick the whole thing down later, probably using the glue gun. So just gonna move this down so I can see. gonna slide this around until it's in the right place. So I just made the overall image a bit bigger, obviously, so I could stick it to the back of the frame. So there we go. We've got our little pumpkin head in our frame, and that is going to be on here somewhere, I think. So I have off camera, just to save a bit of time, I've stuck the letters onto our piece that we inked and painted with gesso earlier, and I've also put some little black gems, and I've used my nail polish again, the same as for the spider, and I've put it kind of just around the edges of here. So that's that piece. So that is our piece that we're going to have down here. We've got our little frame to hang here, and let's see if our little spider is dry. Not quite, but we'll be able to see. So our little spider will then go onto the top of here, into his little web. So I'm going to go ahead and stick all of this down. I'm probably going to use the glue gun to stick all this on. It's probably going to be easier. And then I'm going to come back and show you when it's all stuck down. Okay, so there we have it all glued on, our frame, our little spider with his glittery self, and our lettering down the side. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put something to hang this, or to have as the tag end, because I'm not going to make a hole in and do a normal tag shape. I'm going to use something else here, and obviously if you were making this as something to hang up as a decoration, then obviously it would be good to have something to hang it with. So I'm going to do that size. I can probably use my pencil. What I want to do is just make, I think I'll go for this one. Just want to make a bit of a gap here in the top of the card here, because my idea is that I'm gonna put some glue just in the end, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a piece of jute string that I have here, and I'm going to stick it in to create my loop for the top of my tag or decoration, whatever you're using it as. So I'm gonna put a bit of glue, hopefully, just down on that point where the gap is, and then I'm gonna stick my piece of string into that, and then I'm going to do the same on the other side. Just gently kind of squeezing it. You don't want to squeeze it everywhere. Just a gentle squeeze. And then string's gone a bit, yeah, and then stick that into there. Okay, so now we have a little hanging loop or top of our tag. Pull the glue strings away. So obviously the only thing I have left to do now is I would cover the back of this, but I'm not going to do that in this video because I think we all know how to cover the back of a tag. I'd probably just use another bit of card. You could use printable, a bit of coffee dyed paper, anything you would normally use to cover the back of a tag. So I think I'm going to add a few more bits and pieces to this. What I might do is I've got some of bits of the paint left that I used earlier for the frame, and so I've got some of the metallic colour that I used for the frame. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bit on my finger. It's slightly dried up, but actually that's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and put some around the edge of here, just using my finger. So kind of similar technique that I used to do the frame, really, just kind of rubbing quite gently over the top because you don't want it to be a massive coverage, you just want a little bit. So I'm just going to go around the edges. Don't worry if it goes onto anything else. Just taking it round. I love this coppery colour. It's lovely. So I'm even going to kind of put a bit up onto there as well. And then just kind of little bits here and there, wherever really, just as a little accent. Don't worry if it goes on the web or anywhere else. Okay, so just gonna a little bit there. All right, so I think that's even a bit more exciting now with that metallic around the edges. Okay, so there's one more thing that I was thinking of putting onto here, and that was I had this bit of black chain that I thought might go quite nicely somewhere. So I'm gonna have a little think about how I can attach it on, and I'll be back. Okay, so here we have it. This is our spooky little tag. I've just added the chain that we were looking at, and I've put a couple of little jump rings here, and then I've attached the chain onto the jump rings. Just made a little hole through for the rings, and then I've just used the glue gun to glue it in. up here. So I think that's quite nice. Little detail. Okay, so there we go. I'm very pleased with that actually. I'm very, very pleased. I love my little frame with a little pumpkin. And we've got our hangy bit here if we want to hang it up. But I'm quite impressed with that. So thank you very much for watching. I will hopefully be back soon with some Christmassy goodies, as well as some stuff from my Etsy shop and some freebies as well that will be Christmassy. So hopefully that will be very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.